Yo, I'm so sorry. I have to start this video, Berserk review, Guardians of Desire Chapter 4, but I have to start by explaining the absence. So I want to apologize for the absence without any communication. The reason for this being, to keep it really brief, I had to move out of my apartment. My land manager found that the landlord had painted over black mold in my bathroom, causing migraines, nausea, just lots of other different things. So please accept my apology for that. But we're going to get right back into it because I moved out to my parents for a few months just while I find a new place in the city. But let's get into it. I'm not really going to waste much more time. Let's get into this. As I just said, we just finished Volume 2, so up to Volume 3 now, and I want to point out this is the opening page to Volume 3. Birdman or Birdwoman, to me, in the face, I can't get close enough for you guys to see. There we go. Very feminine features. I think that's a woman. It looks like a woman to me. Very masculine, very strong, I should say, very strong woman, based on the 20 pack. But very interesting. I'm assuming that we're going to get introduced to this character at some point in this chapter. In this volume, apologies. But there's a lot. One of my first thing to note actually is right here. There's a lot more to go in the Guardians of Desire kind of story sequence. So there's 3 more left, all the way up to chapter 6 in the Guardians of Desire sequence. And the one that we're reviewing today is, as I said before, the Guardians of Desire chapter 4. So let's get started. Right off the bat, right here. The opening panel is epic. The demon cat, he kind of looks like a cacti, really, doesn't he? Like with all the spikes and quills all over him, just the way he's kind of laid out. So I've got my notes on my phone here. Let me just quickly scroll. Ooh. There we go. There we go. And obviously, like, something else worth noting is the scale. I think that's really worth noting here, especially up there. The scale is just like, he's so much smaller than the demon count here. So my thought process when reading this at first was he needs to use gravity or something of that nature in his favor to win this encounter. But anyway, so where we left off, the demon count says it's over and basically bloviating, like gassing himself up, saying he's obviously won this encounter already. Puck says, "What's wrong with you? Come on, how's this gonna end? It can't be over now. You're always so high and mighty, putting other people down." And she sees that his eyes are completely kind of glazed over and gone. And I think in that moment, she believes he's dead. She believes Guts is dead there and lost kind of hope in that sense. And that emotion spurs her on to this next conversation with the demon count. So I wrote this down because I think that I wrote it better than I could probably say it. So we'll go through this first, then we'll get to the actual review part. But the demon count says, "No matter how much you've tried to hone your skills, you've come to the limit of your pathetic human form. How fragile you humans." Set this down so you can see it. Up here, the kind of arrogance and hubris, I guess, the ego, that's coming with being like a demon or unkillable, as they're considered, or undestroyable form. And then Puck gets upset and says, "What did you say? What the hell did you say? Look who's bragging, baldy." So first off, shout out my bald people that might be watching this, because there's nothing wrong with being bald. I was literally, I think in the first chapter review I did on this channel, I had no hair. So shout out my bald people. Shout out the count for being bald. But it was just an emotional response again, because Puck believes, I guess, Guts is dead by the look on his face at seeing Guts just completely lifeless on the floor. And anyways, Puck says, English, you yourself used to be one of those fragile humans. And he says, "It's true, Teresia told me how you went crazy after your wife was killed 7 years ago. You acquired those powers so you could get revenge on the heretics, didn't you? But that wasn't the only reason. If it was about revenge, all you had to do was exercise your authority The truth is, you became this thing to run away from the pain inside your own heart, to run away from yourself. If anyone's a fragile human, it's you. And she's absolutely teeing off on this guy. And his response is like, it's like you go to therapy and like, you're like, everyone did this to me. And the therapist is like, it's your fault. And then you're just sitting there like, damn. I don't know. That's how I interpreted it. But so to go through my notes really quickly, here we go. So Puck calls out the Count on oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm a little bit rusty. Puck calls the Count out on his rejection of humanity and his apparent ego, of which offends Puck so much, like his ego in his detachment from humanity, that he insults the Count, calling him bald, which again, as I mentioned, I take exception to. So they could have Puck could have used one of my jokes instead. Call him like a big ass ugly potato or something. I feel like bald's quite simple and effective, especially against real bald people. And then Puck mentalizes the potato demon for calling out his desire for revenge as a motive, but rather suggesting the potato demon is in fact running from his own life and the reality of what his life has become. And then I guess, oh my god, sorry, it's so frustrating trying to manage the notes at the same time. And if this is true, by the way, I just want to mention the Count is such a selfish piece of shit for doing this to his daughter, who needed him more than ever after her mother passed. And instead he became selfish and kind of afraid of his new reality. Maybe loneliness or detachment from his life that he once had by losing her. Again, that's very fragile of him, but that was his selfish decision. Then the potato Count says, I always thought elves had the intellect of a bird or a squirrel. You're quite talkative. An amusing speech, and for that I'll spare your life. Now get out of my sight and be gone. So he's like, he literally said it, thanks for the free therapy. Your reward or your payment for the session, your life. Scram, get out of here. And then Puck says, just like a human to try and cover up a sore spot like that, which I think is the best retaliation you could have done to this guy who has completely rejected his humanity, is to throw his humanity or former humanity and his former weakness back in his face. Puck literally said, weak, mentally weak, or here's who you once were and who you reject and your whole identity that you were and you currently reject, relive it. And rubbed it in his face, and he was not happy. You can see right there. He's like, you what? Anyways, so then Puck's like shaking guts and says, please wake up. We need to get out of here. And as Puck is shaking guts, the behelit falls out of Guts' pocket and hits the deck. And he then, obviously, like, everyone's kind of shocked that the behelit is there. The Count and Puck is kind of shocked by this all happening. And then the Count says, like, you saved me the trouble of looking for it. Like, thank you so much. And this is weird to me, by the way, because the Count's reaction to finding the behelit is immediately trying to, like, smash it with his tail. Because you can see here, Puck flies away with it, and he was going to smash it with his tail. Why was his reaction to destroy it rather than to capture it and keep it? Because he already had possession of it. Wasn't his idea to, like... If he already had possession, why wouldn't he have already destroyed it previously? Because evidence dictates here, he was trying to destroy it, not Puck. Because why would you risk... If he was trying to kill Puck, why would he risk the collateral of the behelit? Unless he's just maybe frazzled. Like, that might be the only explanation, but I thought that was weird. Regardless. And then also this reaction, how Puck says, like, he said, the Count says, fool. And this kind of look of, here, obviously a look of shock that Puck is standing up to him, but also, when I read this, I interpreted fool as this kind of response, as you don't know the powers that be, and you don't know what you're messing with right now, I guess. Let me move. Oh my gosh, sorry. I was just gonna try and move the notes out of the way so it was less distracting. Because you know what? At this point, I got rid of my notes. I said, you know what? I said I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop writing notes because from this point on, epic. It is so freaking awesome. So I literally typed the notes, and I want it to be an authentic reaction for you guys. No note taking. I just want it to be off the top. So from here on out, we're completely freestyling. And it might be easier to not have to like looking back and forth between notes. But then Puck says, if you think I'm going to hand this over to the likes of you, you got another thing coming. And this is kind of weird because I completely forgot the Behelit was a living organism, because Puck is flying away with this thing, holding it by its nostril and mouth. Like, that is really funny. I just thought that was a really funny little panel. Because the Behelit's just like, and the poor thing's got its, like a finger in its like nose and its mouth, and it's just, yeah, it's pretty funny. And Puck says, if I'm flying away, you can't possibly hit me. Unfortunately, the count is crashing out here, and bits of rubble bonk Puck on the head, and it says, like, pathetic little worm. Like, if you want to die, then I'll make sure that happens to you. And what happens next? Then after that, called it. I called this part. Bang. Enter Teresia. Kicks the door in. She goes, Puck! And she storms in. I knew this was getting juicy at this point. She storms in, and she's absolutely, like, on a mission. Look at her facial expression here. Absolutely on a mission. Boss girl energy. Yeah, this is quite sad, actually, this next part. So she storms in, and she looks, and they both kind of make direct eye contact with each other. And of course that's her father. You'd be able to tell it's your father. I mean, it's the same fat-ass potato head. So she could tell it was him, even though it was a giant monster. And she screams and reels in disgust at her father's, like, demon form there. And I feel really sad, actually, because his face of... Bruh, I hope you can still hear me with the plane going overhead, but his face of complete shock and horror, which is funny, because we've seen arrogance from him, we've seen ego, but we haven't seen shame or fear necessarily in his face yet. And this look here, it's not even towards guts, and that's what I find really, really, really interesting, is I predicted this was going to play out how it was going to play out. I kind of knew that Teresia was going to have to step in and make a play here. And, yeah, oh man, I'm getting a bit emotional already. It's a bit sad, because it's like, I couldn't imagine losing your mum, and then suddenly you have to, sorry, the birds in Australia are really loud. This is the nicest spot outside here to do these videos. Anyways, so this is really sad because she lost her mum, and then she has to basically be trapped in this room because her dad is fearful of maybe heretics getting to her, or her seeing what he's become. So she's trapped in this room, isolated, no support at all. And suddenly she's like having to be exposed to her dad's new form, this disgusting demon form. And then imagine him even being like Teresia in his bubbly, disgusting demon form. And he reaches out a tentacle to like, Teresia! And she runs and hides, which, of course, you'd be so scared of your dad as a giant demon monster. Like, no shit, that would be your reaction. I really empathize with her in this situation. It's fucking horrible. And she's just... I don't even know I can't even put into words. Like, it's just awful. Oh, this is really sad, too. Why am I getting emotional over a fucking blob? Fuck this guy. We're good. So, yeah, anyways, so it's just really sad. I don't know, this whole situation. I think he's coming to terms and realizing he's like, the error in his ways of not being present with his daughter and giving her the love and attention she needed in that moment, because she got isolated by him, and she got hung out to dry, really. And it's not his fault what happened to his wife. Oh, partially his fault, but like what's happening to his daughter is his fault though, like right now. So then after that, obviously, like, Puck calls out to Teresia in this moment. And then in doing so, with Puck calling out to Teresia, we see the demon count turn here, and his face of just absolute disdain and disgust. Obviously, a lot of that is the anger of him being exposed to his daughter, and that relationship with his daughter completely being blown out now, completely irreparable, destroyed, never coming back. But then Puck calling out to Teresia, indicating to the account that Teresia has met Puck before. Oh, sorry, of course I have. Sorry, it's been a minute since I read the last chapter. Yeah, no, of course they've met. Like, but maybe, like, what I'm trying to say is that the Count has put a lot of the blame for his breakdown of his relationship with his daughter onto Puck, and therefore he's then going to obviously take out his anger on Puck. He's like, you know what, you're to blame for this. I gifted you to my daughter. You've turned her against me. You're going to pay for that. And that's this anger right here. Oh, sorry, I was just sorry. I forgot I was recording for a second. I was too busy thinking about this part here. And so obviously the demon count absolutely losing the plot, going ballistic at Puck, and Puck's having a, what's it called, like a near-death experience where, and she's, fucking hell, I keep saying she. He's accepted it, where he's basically said, like, oh, I'm gonna die here. Like, this is the end for me. And obviously Puck is emboldened by recent adventures and been demonstrated to have had a lot of growth as a character in terms of being able to stand up for himself and stand up for other people, more importantly. But Puck is very, like, calm and not contented, but like accepting of the fact that this is kind of the end. I mean, what can Puck do against this giant abomination, right? Soak. We see these flying daggers come through and impale the Count in the right in the eyeball. You'll see it here. But it's already the eye that's been cut open though. And then obviously he's like, oh, you shit, and he turns around to see Guts getting up and grabbing his weapon. And he's barely, like, he's just gone, Guts has gone berserk, no pun intended, gone beast mode. You can see in his face. Really cool panel here. But this especially here, you can see in his legs just the lack of strength. He's just got it from being absolutely demolished by the Potato Lord, and he's barely holding it together. And you can kind of see, like, in the smaller script, I don't know if you can see it up here, the breathing, like the heavy breathing, what's the rattling? I read the rattling just up here, near where the script is. Hang on, let me zoom in for you. Right here. Like, he's shaking, he's barely holding it together right now. His body's not really like holding it together, but he's doing his best. Like, we've already identified his strongest asset is his defiance and willpower. His ability to push through the trauma and fight on through all of the traumas he's experienced is on a different level. And then anyways, so what we see is with that, we identified that Puck thought he was dead. And what we see here is this absolute elation. Hang on, let me reread this myself right now just to... Oh my gosh. He says, Guts, you jerk, you big stupid jerk. You were just pretending to be dead, weren't you? I really thought you were a goner. What's the big idea, always acting so tough? Why don't you just go off and die? Man, this shit anyways, we're not fucking crying today, boys. We're locking in. So, I don't know, man. I love Puck as a character. Just the, Puck cares so much about Guts and everyone around. Puck just cares. Full stop. Let's just not even sit it at Guts, but just Puck's here, like, the shock of realizing Guts is okay to then the absolute elation and desperate happiness that Guts is still alive, given what we saw earlier that we thought he had died, but obviously it would be far too early for him to die. Sorry for the, I just want to touch on, sorry for the few pauses that there have been throughout this review. My parents keep passing through, and my dad like had a leg injury recently, so I've had to help him like relocate from like this shed where he works to the house. So just to explain the kind of pauses there. Anyways, so back to this. And as I said before, when I get emotional, boys, we're locking in here. But something that I really, really liked here, this next part here, which this part got me a little bit emotional, not gonna lie. Right here was Guts's gratitude and sense of contentment with Puck showing the affection and showing how grateful he is that Guts is alive here. Like, Guts has nothing to say, we can see, but he's just so grateful and kind of like humbled is the right word, humbled by Puck's care and affection for him, and that's really sweet. That's like really resonates with me, because it humanizes Guts, because without Puck he's a murder machine, but with Puck Puck forces him to feel things that he would not normally feel. So anyways, after that kind of little solemn moment, Guts locks back in and we see here he's confronted again with the ugly ass Count blob demon thing, and he says, "You're still alive." And like I said, he locks in. Bottom left, you can see down all the way over there, he locks in, and he kind of like puts his hand up to Puck as if to be like, right, back up, I got this. And then Puck says, "Wait, Guts, don't be so rash, you'll die." Again, caring, but Guts is smiling. This was really weird to me. So I thought that he was smiling because of the challenge that was in front of him. Like, finally, this is something that's really going to test my grit and my will to win. Boy, was I wrong. I'm so excited to share with you kind of how this all plays out. But anyways, so then Puck's kind of like shocked and maybe a little bit scared by Guts's like, like freaky smile. And then Puck says he smiled, and Guts says, "Not good enough, just 2 or 3 broken bones. If you want to stop me, you're going to have to crush my skull or pierce my heart, just like you, slug." That's the kind of insult we're talking about. Don't call him Baldy. Guts is the best hairline I've ever seen in my life. My hairline, we're hiding it. But Guts' hairline, elite. And he didn't even say bald. He called him a slug. Potato slug. We'll combine both insults. He's the potato slug now. We can see that over here. So I rock with that. And then we see the slug, potato slug, say, no mercy for you, worm." I mean, you can't really say worm after he called you a slug. I mean, it's a bit of a cop-out insult. It's like a very similar, I don't know. It's like calling someone like a stupid dog, and they call you like, "Oh, you donkey." You just said another animal. It doesn't have the same weight. I don't know. Anyways, we're breaking down insults right now. So, insult review, Berserk insult review with Callum. And then obviously the big slug, cacti, potato demon writhes his way over to Guts. Absolutely, again, the scale difference I find immense. I mean, again, his toughest challenge by far compared to that. Do you remember Akoka Castle, that lizard demon and a few other weak enemies that he's fought? No, nothing on this scale, clearly. Puck calls out for Guts again, obviously elated he's alive, as are we all. And he gets fucking gutter stomped. Like, yeah. Absolutely punted. And his face says everything. In that moment when he got punted, I thought he went blind. Like, I don't know why the eyeball. I was like, did he kick his eyesight out of him? You know. Anyways, you move on to the next panel. This was fucking brutal. He got punted into the pillar, and his head smashed into it. Oops, sorry. His head smashed into it here, and splattered. And he goes bleh, and just spits guts. Sorry, spits blood everywhere, and then Puck says, "What's he thinking? It's just getting worse and worse." And this thing's relentlessly coming at him, by the way. You can see down here. I don't want to spoil the next part yet because it's awesome, but it's racing towards him, the Count. And you think it's pretty much like GG's at that point, right? And then Puck's hiding, saying he's going to die. And it's still racing towards him. And he's kind of like watching. He's leaning back like, fuck. Like, I'm cooked. He's like, yeah, sorry, new age lingo. You guys are going to click off now. You're like, fuck this guy. What's he even talking about? And then Guts does something I did not expect. This is why he was smiling earlier. So he grabs Teresia and literally uses her as a shield. Now, we need to break that down really quickly. I always thought he empathized with humans, but he clearly values, in the context of his life and the fact he was going to die in that instance, he either, on the shallow side of it, you could say he's selfish and doesn't care about human life. But I would counter that argument with the fact that he knew that from the dialogue while he was kind of laying on the ground, he knew that Teresia was someone that the Count cared about and the Count wouldn't hurt. So taking her hostage wasn't any risk to Teresia's life, but rather it was always going to spare his. So I was shocked when he, as was the Blob Count, it literally says shock. That is not paraphrasing. And him taking her as a hostage, Teresia, is not... You can say that morally it's a bad action, but I feel like he's smart enough to know that there was no risk to Teresia's life. The Count would never hurt Teresia. Demon form, sure, but the motherfucker still loves her. Like, that is still like his only... I don't want to say possession, but the only thing that he loves and really... Oh, for fuck's sake. The only thing he really loves and cares about. So I'm trying to... There we go. Sorry about this. Has been disastrous, but anyways. And so everyone's shocked by this, by the way, except for Guts. His little facial expressions here. I want to break this down. So his facial expression here, it's a test. He's like, but he knows the outcome. It's like, he's looking at him like, now what? Now what are we going to do? Like, I've got your daughter as a hostage. You're not going to hurt her and you're not going to hurt me. Like, what's up? That was his facial expression. It was a dare, really. Obviously, distress in Puck's face, not knowing what Guts is thinking. Guts cares about Puck and thinks he's a big buff head. And I don't think that she was thinking that he would have the foresight or forethought to think about her safety. So I think Guts is thinking that he's being selfish in doing so, but I like to think that he has enough humanity to see past that. So Guts, I feel like Guts, oh my god, Puck doesn't see that, but anyways. And he's like, bastard! And she's clearly distressed. He's also kind of like holding her by the head and being like, look at your dad. Like, look at the fuck. He's literally like, this is your father, Luke. Star Wars reference. Anyways, the next panel here, he calls out to Teresia, again, a moment of weakness. I predicted from my last review, if you go back and look, so I don't mean to point so much, I'm getting excited. This is epic. If you go back to my last chapter review, you will see that I called that Teresia would be involved at some point. It would make the Count, the slug Count, lower his guard, and then Guts would capitalize on that. Dude, chalk it up. I remember saying that. Anyways, and so he, again, in a moment of weakness, up here, he says, Teresia, Guts stands up on bedness, on blood, more specifically, flips out his gun. We can see he aims it right at the Count's head while he's kind of getting close because obviously he just charged at them, but he stopped when he saw Teresia. So he's right, like point blank range. His hand flips open into a gun, and he fucking blasts his head off. So epic. Again, it's the exact same strategy as what he used against the lizard demon. So I don't know how many times he's going to be able to reuse this strategy before it gets kind of old, but it's the exact same strategy, kind of like the bait and switch, I guess. And again, everyone is shocked by that instance where he literally blows that slug's head off. So Puck and Teresia, they're both just gobsmacked. I feel like Guts is the only one that predicted that this was going to play out the way that it was going to play out. But even so, I feel like even facing that type of life or death experience would be pretty fucking scary, as we see here with just the fucking fear. Maybe not fear. Adrenaline, I guess. I mean, he's human, so the adrenaline rushing through his body. And he lunges for his blade here. Again, just man on a mission. He was always... I feel like he's so smart. He's battle smart is the word to use. He's so clever in combat that he takes his humanity from a weakness to an advantage. I think that's really cool. Anyways, he lunges to grab the sword and his hand is completely mangled, broken fingers and everything. And so what he does, when he sees that, he looks up at the Slug Lord with his face on fire and screaming. And this reminds me of, I already referenced it, but this reminds me of No Face from Spirited Away, from the Studio Ghibli movie, when No Face eats all the food in that big dining hall and he goes, "I want to eat everything." I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but that's what it reminds me of here. And then anyway, so because his hand's broken, he can't pick it up, and because he just used his missile hand, the hand is kind of latched back, I guess. So he's got no hands to use to pick up his sword to finish this fight. So what does he do? Like the dog that he is, badass motherfucker, picks it up in his mouth. Honestly, he's so cool, man. I wish I was Guts, dude. He's so cool. He picks up in his mouth, and this is G'd up. He literally lunges at him with the sword in his mouth and slices through the middle of his mouth. I had to look back on it a few times to see where he cut. He cut through there. You'll see it here if you're looking close. I'll show you. He slices, so that's the bottom jaw, and that's the top jaw here. Slices through his jaw with the blade in his mouth. What kind of jaw strength does he have, by the way? To hold that fucking sword in his mouth. Again, I guess adrenaline counts for something, but as we say, basically you just see the after effects of his head getting absolutely just demolished here, and the fear in his eyes. Suck shit. Oh, not suck shit. I was borderline gonna cry when I was reading this, and it was tough to read because I just feel sorry for him. You can't help it, and this is what this character was meant to do, I feel. It was meant to make you empathize with humans formerly humans who gave up their humanity in preference to become demons for want of not wanting to feel their emotions, I guess, not wanting to live the lives that they have to live, given the fact, I don't know, in this position, the Count losing his wife, and then the difficulty and the trauma of having to sit with that was too much for him. And I guess I don't feel like it's power based. I mean, now that he has it, it's power and ego based, because he's like, "Oh, you can't kill me because you're a human, haha." And that's an ego trip. But him wanting to be a demon wasn't for a power trip. It was, as Puck said, it was to run from his reality and to, I guess, get revenge, because in human form he couldn't get revenge himself, but in this form there was nothing that was going to stop him from taking vengeance on the heretics that killed his wife, I guess. So anyways, Guts crashes to the floor after cutting the Count's head off, and the Count's head, and he just collapses in a big heap here. I found it really hard sometimes to also be able to make out what body parts were what, because it's just a giant blob at the end of the day. Is the big slug, as Guts had identified, but it's hard to make out sometimes. But that's his head over here falling to the ground. And I guess there's calm after the storm, if you will, where I don't know, I didn't even know how to interpret Teresia's emotions, but Guts is Puck is speechless, for lack of better words, as am I. But here, Teresia, if we zoom in, I think she's disgusted. disgusted in guts, heartbroken at her father's new identity, or what he truly was this whole time while she was locked away. But it's just a blend of just awful emotions that she's been sitting with, and therapy. She needs therapy. She needs to talk to a specialist. She needs to get 5 free trial sessions with a psychologist, and she needs to say, so, my dad's a slug demon, and he got his head cut off, and I watched it while I was being held hostage. Then Puck says he planned that. He was counting on taking Teresia as a hostage all along, and we identified that again from his smiling earlier, his kind of evil maniacal smile, and what we see here. I think he just does it not for the love of the game, but he loves this shit. He loves knocking demons with ego down a peg or two. I think he takes pride. That's actually interesting. I reckon he takes pride in his humanity. He actually takes offense when his humanity is attacked, in a sense. Because a lot of these demons are like, you're weak, your humanity is what holds you back, blah, blah, blah. I think he takes so much pride in his humanity and showing these demons how fragile they really are. I feel like there's some validity in that. Anyway, so he's on the ground. The count is on the ground twitching and says, damn you. And Guts walks over and just shoves a dagger in his mouth, which hurts the demon. And he's clearly in pain by that and says, ah. And this poor fucking Teresia, man. Like, just when you thought she had enough trauma. Anyways, and then Guts says, I'll show you the limit of a human being. Yeah, we're fragile, all right, we humans. As he takes so much pleasure in this, and the fear in the cat's face. Even I kind of enjoy it. I empathize with him, but I also enjoy seeing people that have ego get like knocked down a peg or two. Like, you're not that much better than everyone else, bro. Seriously. Anyways, he's taking the knife and dragging it through his face as he's talking shit. Kind of badass. Anyways, and he's screaming, and then Teresia's covering her mouth, and she's like, no. And she's crying, and I think she's just like in pain for her dad. She's empathizing with her dad now that he's kind of... She was already, in her mind, she was already kind of consoling the loss of her father as she knew him in her mind. That was a lot of the emotion. That was a lot of the emotion before, but what she's experiencing now is a lot of the emotion of her father dying. I mean, she just saw him get his fucking head cut off and blown off. So he's not walking out of that one. And so you can see here on this panel here. So Guts is torturing her and him, and she's over here. Well, she's also torturing her by proxy, but she's crying out like, no, like, stop it. And Puck, being the empathetic person that he is, flies over and says, stop it. Not in front of the little girl. That little girl, Teresia, she's completely innocent, which is true. She's completely innocent. And I don't think, like, Guts cares about her life, but he doesn't care about her, like, crying. Like, he couldn't give a fuck about that. So, and we see that here, because, again, that's, I guess, the boundaries of Guts, or, like, his moral boundaries, right? Because he's like, yeah, I care about your life, but fuck your feelings, right? Because she's like, yeah, stop, that little girl's completely innocent. Guts that turns the blade on Puck and says, shut up. If you get in my way, I'll kill you, is what he says. And he's deadly serious about that too. He's so serious. And if you turn to the next page, Puck is completely gobsmacked by that. And I don't know how I feel about this right here. So Guts then says, always so stuck up, Count. Let's give your sweet little daughter a look at that proud face now. And he picks him up. He picks him up here, because he's so smug about this. He picks him up here and slams him on the ground right in front of her. And he says, stop, please. And he's begging, like, too late now, buddy boy. Too late now, potato fucker. And then, he says, like, stop, don't be so shy. And he goes ballistic here. Take a good hard look at a body that doesn't die. Just so aggressive with it, and starts stabbing the hell out of the Count. I guess trying to teach her a life lesson maybe. And she's just, the trauma is getting worse. She needs more than 5 free trial sessions. She needs 50 at least to start working through it, and just stabbing the shit out of him. And I think it's meant to, just this panel's really cool. He says here, amazing, you really are superhuman, you really don't die, do you? Epic panels here. Look at the aggression in his face, the bloodlust. I think maybe he was angry that he kind of lost that earlier fight, and the Count is suffering as a result of it. And then Puck says, why go that far? And Terezia's going to vomit from her facial expression. Anyways, he's stabbing so hard that he falls off the Count and hits the ground, and he's just laying next to the Count on the ground, who's still alive after being stabbed so many times, and he starts laughing. He starts pissing himself laughing, and I think he's laughing at how fucked up it is. Like, that's my interpretation. He's just sitting there. He's not, like, angry. He's not, like, resentful. He's just showing the Count's daughter, hey, that's not your father anymore. Don't feel sorry for him. I think that's what it is. It's more of a life lesson more than a fuck your dad. I think that's what it is. Anyways, this is fucked up. You ready for this? This is great. I was, like, gobsmacked. You guys ready for this? So, check this out. The blood from the Count like flushes towards the Behelit, and the Count says, I don't want to die. And the Behelit kind of like is reacting to the blood, and it's moving. And then the Count screams, I don't want to die. Down here, as we see up here, the blood rushing over the Behelit. And then the Count, Guts is like, thing starts bleeding, his brand. And then Puck says, Guts, it's the Behelit. And the Behelit stands up with blood rushing out of its eyes with its mouth open, just like the Count is. So it's like emulating the pain that he's experiencing. And I don't know if his begging to not die is like activating the Behelit. It must. It must be like a cry for help from one demon to the demon world or the demon lords. I don't think you guys are ready for this. All right, so I can see on my camera I've only got 2.5 minutes left of recording time, but check this out. You ready? Because after that screaming and the Behelit doing that as well, right? Look at this. What the fuck kind of like geometric mindfuckery is this? Completely transported to a new world through the Behelit. They did say it was a key to a different world, an adjacent world. Guts is absolutely shitting himself here, fearful. They've all been transported. Guts, Teresia, Puck. They're all kind of like flipped around in this sideways world. I even have to turn the book sideways for you guys to see this. Look at that. They're flipped around, and Puck says, what's going on here? Teresia's freaked out, and Guts says, it's another dimension. And the Slug Lord says, they're coming. The Great Ones are coming. The Godhand? The Godhand, possibly? And we hear, like, as, like, creatures are moving forward from the darkness. And Guts' brand explodes with blood here. And then Gus is on the ground, screaming in pain. And what we see is these figures emerge. The Birdman, I didn't expect to see them so soon. And Guts is looking up in pain, fear, anxiety for what's to come. And this is the final double-page spread, which I need to get through in 1 minute because I'm nearly out of record time. Check this out. The Godhand. It is the Godhand. Because there was 5 members of the Godhand. And here they are. So that is the one we identified from the front cover of Volume 3. These look really cool. Let's try and get through these. This one that's upside down is the Potato King. It has to be. He looks exactly like them. And he kind of must be where the Count got his power from, I'm guessing. This one over here looks kind of like that slug thing that follows him in his nightmares. I'll show you again. And this one upside down, kind of, I don't even know what that looks like, but that kind of looks like a skeleton brain thing. And then this one over here is like, I don't know who that is, but they all look insanely powerful. All right, I literally have 20 seconds left of record time. That is the end of Guardians of Desire Chapter 4. I'm sorry for the delayed video. I plan to do more of them more frequently now that I'm settled out here. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.